welcoming everybody to the Bare Knuckle Recovery Podcast. This is episode 29. As always, I'm Tommy Streeter. This is Nate Mollering. Yep. As you guys can see, we've got a guest with us today, Anton. If you guys follow the page, if you like us on Facebook, you've probably seen Nate and I and Scott with Anton doing some MMA stuff, some boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu stuff. So we always have really good conversations when we're at the gym with Anton. So we thought, why not bring him into the studio, let him talk a little bit about what we do and why it's beneficial, especially for Nate and I in our recovery. So Anton, if you want to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, thank you. Name's Anton Talamantes. Glad to be here, and I appreciate you guys a lot and for bringing me on. The type of training that we do is something that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to do with you guys, and I know Nate and I have talked a lot over the years, and Tommy more recently, just about the power of the mind, body, spirit when it comes to this type of, and that sounds kind of, I think, goofy when I say that, but I really do mean it. And for me, I've trained my whole life, wrestling and all through college, fought professionally in MMA for a little bit.
Where did you wrestle in college?
So I wrestled first. I went out to a junior college in California, Lassen Community College, and that was at the time it was on a national circuit. Now it's just state, but a lot of guys. I was recruited to go to Purdue out of high school, but I wasn't the greatest student, so I had to make up some grades and go out there and prove that I could go to school, go to college, and pass. So I went out there as a junior college. I won a national championship, and then from there, I got an opportunity to go wrestle for the Ohio State.
Oh, his favorite team. Should have went to Michigan.
Should have, but it was a good experience, and I enjoyed it a lot. And so, I grew up around boxing. My dad was a PAL boxing coach and a silver glove champion, and my oldest brother was a silver glove champion, and then my next oldest brother was a state champion and a tough man champion. So it's always been in the
Runs
family.
in the family a little bit, huh?
Yeah, it's always been in there. So, but yeah, man, I've always loved to train. I'm a huge advocate of what it does for us and the way it makes us feel. And so, Nate reached out. I don't know, it's been a while ago now that we first started
that was
training.
like 2020. It was like during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was.
We were still rolling at Spiece in that back room.
Yep.
It
was a good time, and through that process, getting you in, and it was really cool for me. I mean, for me personally, I appreciate the opportunity to come talk, just because addictions run in our family, my family. I've had alcoholism and drug addiction, and it's affected my family as it affects many families. So I've always had an affinity to try and get out there in the community and try and help people how I can, because I think this modality, mixed martial arts, whether it's boxing, kickboxing, is really powerful. Not getting punched and kicked in the face. It's not competitive. It's not like we're hurting each other. We're just working mitts and catching for each other, and that dopamine high that comes after you're done, and really the conversations are what are really cool, from my experience afterwards. And so I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on and chat.
Well, and we've had the opportunity with you to, do the mitts, do all that stuff, the instruction, but there is available that sparring and kind of that like hands-on stuff. But there is something about that contact, human contact, and then the camaraderie you build working through the techniques, going hands-on, doing something. There's just something, like you said in the beginning, that's spiritual, mental, and physical, putting all those things together, I think, that go back to, just the human existence from the beginning of time, as we're meant to use our bodies in ways that we're meant to be in motion. And obviously, hand-to-hand combat has been around since almost the beginning of time.
Yeah, I think it's good for everyone to know what it feels like to get punched in the face. So Noah, if you want to come up here, we'll have Anton punch you in the face.
Come on up.
Yeah.
No, I think 100% that, there's always, so I've always had to, I go to the extreme. I've always felt like, because I fought professionally and I've been around guys that are in the UFC and Bellator and trained with some pretty high level people, that there's a time and a place for that. And some people, that's what they're made for to do. But there's an element to this that's for everybody, I think. And that's the part that I try to express to people. And like you said, I was talking to somebody this morning, getting coffee, and I just talked about the push-pull aspect. There's something really unique about pushing and pulling on somebody, making people get uncomfortable. You go to that dark place physically. Like when you guys both lift weights, you guys both know what it's like to work out, to do cardio. I work out with people and train people that run 6 to 8 miles on a regular basis. It's just something different about throwing those punches and those kicks and those knees and those elbows, that it's a stress reliever. You're punching on things, you're learning. I always say real self-defense, because I would never speak poorly or, about somebody that teaches self-defense, but there's certain elements to it. Like real self-defense is being able to punch and kick or hit a takedown and control somebody to the ground when you get to the ground. You know what I mean? If you need to do it to protect yourself. I never teach to be the instigator. It's always be the defender.
Right.
And hopefully you learn skills that you never have to use. But the plus is just doing the work. And it's hard. At some point it gets hard. My job is to make it hard at some point where you start breathing hard and the oxygen is not getting to the brain. You know what I mean? So that you're messing up combinations. I think it's so funny because people would get to that 40, 45 minute mark. Sometimes for Tommy, it's 20, 25 minute mark, but they get to that mark where they start to miss on a combo. And it's only because that's what naturally happens to the brain when you're trying to think through and do
breathe.
So when you breathe in, and then over time, the growth factor is always there.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of it is for people learning how to do hard things.
Yeah.
And like you said, going to that dark place, which is, I might pass out, I might throw up, but I'm going to push through anyway. Like my arms are, like the Eminem song, knees weak, arms are heavy, but it's for real, like you really, in some of those moments, you're like, man, deep breaths are tough right now. I'm sweaty. I'm tired. He's calling out combos. Somebody else is pushing on me, leaning on me. And you have to go to that place where you push through. And there's so many parallels to that when it comes to not only recovery, but just real life in general, right? And that's what's so cool is mixed martial arts is a discipline.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about it with the carryover. As far as, recovery, whether it's addiction, mental health, pornography, sex, gambling, whatever it is, a lot of people struggle with confidence when they first find recovery, because many times, like Tommy and myself have laid out on this, podcast many times, you come from a background of letting people down. Most importantly, you let yourself down, but you also let the people down closest to you on a regular basis. Even though you say, if somebody hooks you up to a lie detector, you're going to pass. Tomorrow I'm going to do better. I'm not going to steal anymore. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to cheat. It happens. And then the shame factor rolls in, right? But when you add something, and I'm not saying this is a substitute for recovery work. It's certainly not, but it's a phenomenal supplementation to it in the sense that it's just something totally different that most people never even think of. Like you can get the mental side with, a lot of the treatment services and AA and all that, and also do the spiritual side. But so many people neglect that physical side and just the confidence that it builds. And again, you talked about it's self-defense. So like never are we people that want to instigate any kind of confrontation. However, like Joe Rogan talked about on one of his podcasts, and whatever you feel about Joe Rogan, whatever, but he was so right in this, that when you are confident in your training, especially like with mixed martial arts, when you walk into a room, you just feel different. Like you don't feel nervous. You don't feel anxious about people staring at you, looking at you. Like you're confident you can handle anything that comes your way.
100%.
And it's not like you have to live with your head on a swivel, like there's danger around every corner. It's not what I'm talking about.
No.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so cool. There's so many parallels with training, with mixed martial arts, with all these things that so well complement the mental and spiritual side of it.
Yeah, I think the parallelism that you're speaking to is really, like, I agree 100%. And I think from some of the studies that I've done on recovery, you often find people that they start running and they go run 100 milers or 200 milers, or you get people that start biking, or because they're feeding that whatever makes them feel good or makes them feel better. You know what I mean? If it's the dopamine, it feeds that whatever is in them, right? That, because like you guys said, you have to replace. You know what I mean? It's not like you just stop. And then, and I've always wondered, and that'd be a question I pose to you guys about when you the fact that this is hard, right? Because like you guys said, that how many times you had to start over and go. Is there a fear at some points of letdown, or a fear of falling back into the old ways? Is that part of it, or
you just don't have confidence you can see anything through? I didn't finish hard. Like before I got sober, the only thing I ever finished was probably like a pizza. You know what I mean? It's
a pizza or a bag of heroin.
Right. Exactly. Right. Or a job ripping off some department store for a purse or a bottle of liquor, So it's just, you're so shaken to your core as a human being. Like I looked at people that were just 9-to-5ers that had a family and a house as like these people on this pedestal. It was unimaginable that somebody could wake up and go to work every day and do a job and be good at it and come home and pay their bills and mow their lawn and just do all these like basic things that we do in our society. That was like so far out of reach for me mentally, just because of who I had been and just the struggles that I had. That's where most people are when they first enter recovery, is like,
do you stay there forever? Or is there always a part of that, or you get past that to where because you guys, to me, are role models in my mind. I know you guys don't see yourselves that way.
I mean, I think a lot of the small things that you do in early recovery start to build up some of that confidence a little bit. And it absolutely takes time. I mean, I slept on a couch that I did not own for about a year after I first got sober. And I think part of that there was definitely some fear in there that if I moved from this new spot that I'm now relatively comfortable in, I was definitely nervous about what might happen. So it took me some time, but I got a job and started to save a little bit of money and started, seeing my family again. And just, so it's like little things that to a normal person is just, it's not anything special. But like for us, that was huge for me to even have a job that I held down for more than a month.
Yeah.
With that, I'm curious, it's like these small steps that you take in recovery that help you build up a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more over time, right? And then do you guys feel, or I'm just curious, when you're in that process, because you both are strong and you lift regularly, even before this stuff that we do, you guys are still active and physical. Was that part of the recovery process as well? Like getting to be like, I'm going to go hit these weights because it makes me feel better. And you know what I mean? Like, did you know early on you were going to start lifting weights heavily? Because I think you're a lot bigger now, Tommy, than you were when you first started.
Like working out was always important to me, even when I was younger, because I played basketball and I played football and I did MMA for a little bit. So I always enjoyed working out, but not anything near like what I do now. Yeah. It wasn't really like when I was living on that couch, we were in an apartment complex. So I'd go work out in the little gym that was at the apartment, but really the only reason I did it is because it made me feel good. Like when I would leave the gym, it's not like I even really enjoyed doing it while I was doing it, but when I would walk out of the gym, just like when I walk out of your gym, it's not always the great time while I'm there. Like it is fun. If it wasn't, I wouldn't keep doing it. But the feeling that you get when you leave there, when you really do get that rush of dopamine and endorphins, like that's what is why I enjoy it so much.
I mean, I think that one of the things
Plus
that
I
a lot
to
of
punch him sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. We get to hit each other. It's 100%. Fun. I mean, there's something very human about being able to hit each other. And I don't mean that like from a mean perspective, but just specifically as men, right? Like there is that physical element that most
I wasn't
people
kidding
crave.
when I said I think it's important that everyone knows what it feels like to get punched in the face.
It's a life-changing experience to get hit. Like Mike Tyson used to say, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Like that's real, because when I've been hit, I've been rocked, I've been like, it's a different experience. You know what I mean?
And life's going to rock you.
Yeah. It's like, and are you going to try and get back up, or how are you going to get back to a good place? The one thing I'd like to touch on that you mentioned is that what I'm about is trying to share with more people that experience that you talked about, like after the workout. And I feel like mixed martial arts, doing the stuff that we do, the mitt work, even the heavy bag work, is like, I've had the most euphoric, this is why I'm here type of moments doing those types of workouts that I feel like the everyday person, 99.9% of the world's population, never gets to experience.
Absolutely.
And that's what I like to try and share and get people. Like, I was hyped when Nate talked you into coming, because I was like, I know Tommy's a headstrong dude, and I was like, I don't know if he's going to come in and try it, and then you did, and then to keep coming back to me, I'm truly grateful, like, because I know that you have to like it to keep coming back, and it was just seeing the progress from day one to now. As that first day, the first 5-10 minutes, you were like, I'm dead, you know what I mean? But you just kept coming back and just kept coming back, and that's proof of mental discipline, facing your fears, facing the darkness, which is all to me part of growth, in my opinion.
But you just laid out what recovery is. I mean, it's just continuing to progress. Like, you could do this example where you look at it side by side, where you first get sober, you take away drugs and alcohol, that's hard, but then you walk in and the real work begins when you start doing the recovery stuff, right? Changing your habits. We always say the only thing you have to change in recovery is everything, right? And it sounds cliche, but it's true. You really do. So like, you come in, the cardio's hard, but you're working on your jab, and you throw how many jabs before it feels natural? A ton, 1,000, 10,000, whatever it is. I'm sure there's some kind of statistic out there, but the same thing is true for recovery. Like, how many times do you have to practice asking for help before it just becomes second nature, before you feel comfortable? You have to practice saying no before it feels comfortable, right? So like, your one is, which is your jab, is asking for help. So you throw that however many times. And over here, you're throwing your jab, you're getting the muscle memory down.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with recovery. You're getting your recovery muscle memory down. But that's what I loved what you were saying, is like, you push through that, and it's really difficult, and it's scary, and it's challenging, and most people don't do it. But when you do, and you get on the other side, like, you have that euphoria, but it's not just a good feeling. It's, I would define it almost as like some sort of like fulfillment, which is what recovery is, like finally feeling fulfilled. And that's why this is so important. Like, when you go do that, and I want everybody watching this podcast to know, like, you do need to exercise. Like, that is a part of who you are as a human being.
Right.
You were created to be physically active. So if you're sedentary, stop doing it. It's not good for you. It's not good for your recovery. And even if you're not in recovery, it's just not good for you in general. So get up, do something, even if it's 20, 30 minutes a day, walking, whatever it is, I don't care, do something. But that's why this is so important for recovery, is like, again, it's that innate human yearning for that physical movement, to do something, to accomplish. That's what dopamine is. Dopamine is like, it's the pleasure chemical, but it's the wanting chemical. Like, if you don't have dopamine, they did a study with rats, not to go back to the book Dopamine Nation, we beat that to death, but they removed the part of the brain that produces dopamine, and the rats, literally, they would only eat if you put the food in their mouth.
Yeah, so I said the same thing today, because I paid attention to that. They did the opposite of the original pulling the lever and that effect. And so somewhere in the middle is probably where it makes sense. You know what I mean? And I do what I do. I'm 45 years old. I've had many injuries. I've had many reasons not to exercise, not to work out, but I do it because of that. The dopamine, like, it's my adrenaline rush. It's I drink coffee and I train, you know what I mean? And if I go a day or two without training, I have to get back into it and I love it though. But it's a thing that I cherish, you know what I mean? It's been a part of me my whole life, and hope that it always will be. But that's where I have some friends that train, and they train 2 or 3 times a day. They're older, and it's like, it's funny to me, but I think we're all chasing that dopamine, that feel good feeling that you're talking about, because it absolutely feels good. And I can't tell you how many times we do a session, and it's the session, but like you said, at the end afterwards, and then the conversation you have for 20 minutes afterwards is really like, everyone feels high on life. Like, they feel great, and they have really meaningful conversations. And to me, that's what I think becomes addictive.
Well, the opposite of addiction is human connection. We say that all the time, and it's true. You want to make human connections, go to MMA.
Yeah.
Because you will. I mean, physically, obviously.
Up close and
Your
personal.
fist will make a human connection.
Personal.
But, like, again, the camaraderie is something I think that so many people overlook, and that's so important. It's important for men and women, but like for men in particular. That's why, you're an Army vet, right? And that's one thing a lot of Army vets, especially guys in recovery, talk about, is like, guys would always say, Jared says this a lot, the guys will be like, oh, I missed the military. And they're like, no, you don't miss the military, you miss the guys.
100%.
You miss the love, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, whatever it is, and this is a place where you can get that, because we're all coming together, and no matter what phase you're at, there's work to be done.
Yeah, always.
And you do it together. And I think it's so cool. So many people hear this and they're like, this sounds really intimidating. And that's okay. It's okay to be intimidated. That's what courage is. Courage is not being like totally confident and lacking fear. It's having fear and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
But like, that's one of the things you learn is when you go into a room with somebody like you, who's confident, who knows what they're doing, the majority of those people, especially when they do it with us, like, nobody's there to beat you up. People are just excited that you're there.
Exactly.
And they get to teach you how to do it, and they want to see you learn and grow.
Yep.
Which is, again, it's like one of those things it's this parallel that is so profound between the MMA side of things and recovery.
No, it's awesome. And I think it also parallels, in my opinion, life, because how often do you really do hard stuff? Like, I would use a different explosive. I don't say stuff. I say other stuff because it's real and it's gets to the core of who we are.
We
right?
can cuss
like,
on here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hard, you know what I mean?
Right.
Hard makes you, everybody can think about, anybody listening to the podcast, your friends, people you talk to every day. I talk to people every day that know that I train and they still haven't, they always say they're going to come train with me eventually or whatever. But every human being, in my opinion, has conversations every day about how they should do a little bit more. They should go for a walk today.
In their head,
they should start go jogging today. They should start working on losing some weight today. They should start whatever it is. That's your own voice. That's your inner, like what we're talking about. That's telling you, hey, go do something, and you either do or you don't. You know what I mean? But you have to deal with that every day. Like, I've known people over the years in their 50s and 60s and 70s that still will say, I need to lose a few pounds. I need to start exercising. I need to go walk. And that's the beautiful thing about it is like, hey, just go do, like, start, you know what I mean? And I love it because that dark place, I always call it the dark place. I talk to my wrestlers about it. I talk to jiu-jitsu guys, MMA people as well. When you go to that dark place, it's like you come close to that spot where you want to quit. Your body's screaming quit. Your head's saying, hey, stop. And there's something about getting to the end of that round. There's 30 seconds left. There's a minute left. And you're dead tired, but you find a way to push through the end of the round.
Yes.
Something happens to you that makes you feel like you've accomplished something. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. And that's a correlation to life or parallel to life. Because as long as we're here, I think that scenario is always going to be presented to us. Like, are you going to keep trying to dig deep and find a way to a better place?
Well, 2 points on that, 2 parallels that we've talked about so far that we haven't really pointed out, but just to go back to the idea you were talking about where people always have a reason why they can't train, right? And how often do we come in, Tommy and I and Scott and everybody else, and we're like, hey man, I got this thing going on with my heel, but we'll work around it today. Or I got my knee, like we won't do takedowns, but we'll do push pull and we'll do some sparring or hit the mitts, right? That is perfect example for recovery. And what I mean by that is everybody has reasons not to get sober. Everybody has reasons why they can't go to IOP or detox or to meet with their counselor or peer recovery coach or whoever the heck it is, right? I have a flat tire. I don't have my car. You know, I really should be looking for a job. You know, my stomach hurts, but you know, gosh dang, man, this is me repeating myself again, but how far do you go to get that bag of dope or that drink? You know,
given.
Oh, dude, like you're going to do whatever you have to do. Like you're going to climb over a wall and run through gunfire and steal from the store and risk imprisonment and possible death to get it done, you know? And then it's so foreign to people that then you flip that around and you do that for your recovery and your sobriety, but they don't like to do it because they don't see the immediate payoff like you do with sticking a needle in your arm or taking a drink. Nothing works quite as quickly.
100%.
However, it's like so much more fulfilling. Like if you just start doing stuff, that's the best way to get rid of shame. Like you said, like I should start trying to lose weight today. Just start with something small, dude. Like go for a 10-minute walk. And instead of, you know, getting a McDouble today, like pack your lunch and eat a sandwich, you know, but like look at it as this process of like making improvements as you go. The same thing is true with your recovery. So, I mean, there's just, and that's why I love MMA when it comes to like incorporating into recovery, is all the parallels that are there, because it is really, really hard. And going to that dark place where you want to quit and you don't know if you can do it, that is exactly where you go when you have that craving, when you have that moment where you have 10 days, 30 days, 3 days, 2 hours, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and you're hanging on the edge. And your stomach is fluttering, your palms are sweaty, your heart rate's up. You have the opportunity to go get high, go get drunk, whatever it is. You're thinking about it, you're weighing it, and you push through and you don't do it. Like that feels amazing too. And so many people just don't push through that. But here's the difference. Like at the MMA gym, who's there with us? It's you. You're training. Tommy's there, Scott's there, whoever else is there. You got that minute left. What are people saying? You got it, dude.
Yep.
Come on, dude. Push,
Yeah.
push, dig in, right? So that's another example of like, if you surround yourself with a bunch of people that don't know how to do MMA and you think you're going to learn MMA, it's not going to go well when you go up against somebody that knows MMA, right?
Yeah.
Like I can sit here and be like, I'm going to beat John Jones' ass and I'm going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. Well, if I just go get Joe, Billy, and Curly to train me and we're drinking beers and, you know, I think I'm tough because I knock out the fat guy at the bar, I'm going to get murdered, dude. Yeah. It's the same thing with recovery. If you're hanging around with people who don't give a crap, who don't have that muscle memory to teach you how to live out your recovery and your sobriety, you're going to get whooped. And in that last minute, dude, you're going down.
That's why I love what you guys do. Like, it's really powerful stuff. And I mean, I tell you guys, and it's odd for me just because like I know, I think about you guys because I know you guys are in it every day. Your days, some days you have long days, and those days you guys are in some deep places sometimes. I respect the heck out of it, man, but I can also tell, excuse me, the support, man. Like, it's obvious the support you guys have for each other.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your team is a part of that as well. So I just feel lucky to be a part of it, but I know that you feed off of it with each other, which is awesome, in my opinion.
Yeah. Who you surround yourself with is one of the most important things in recovery, but in the fight game too. Sure.
100%. Anything that you do, right? And my approach has always been, I was fortunate enough, or maybe it was just a way for me, like these things I've learned throughout my life, I stepped back and said to myself, how can I share this with other people without them getting punched or kicked in the face? Because everybody that knows me is like, I'm not trying to go in there and get beat up by you, Anton. It's like, that's not what it's about. It's not like that at all.
He's like, no, come on, let me punch you in the face.
Maybe occasionally.
You got me yesterday a couple times.
Yeah, it was good.
It was all right.
We sparred yesterday to the body.
Yeah, but it was good. It was good.
And that's the thing too, man. Sparring to the body is different because you can do it and you're probably going to be okay a lot more than you think, but you're going to get those fast twitch muscles moving to where you're breathing really heavy and you go and you get tired, period. And that's a unique experience as well, but you're not having to worry about getting punched or kicked in the head.
He said that he thought you punched him in the mouth on purpose so he wouldn't be able to come in here and talk as much today.
I don't think I called him in the mouth.
You did once. You called me in the head a couple times, but so did that other guy. And it's fine. It was fine, but like it felt good though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's fine, but you know that going in. But that's the thing is like, you don't have to go, like you don't have to do all that. Like that's what we're trying to get people to understand is if you feel intimidated by this, you're like, I'm not big and strong. Fine. It's fine.
I think 100%. I mean, I'm a side guy. Like we were talking a little bit on the break. I spent a lot of time breaking the mind down because I went from, I was always into sports. So I went as an athlete, I can think back to being 5 years old, watching my dad hit the heavy bag, wanting to do it myself, playing soccer as a 5-year-old, didn't start wrestling until I was 7. So the first, up until from like, as a little kid to 12 years old, I had a lot of success. I was a multiple state freestyle champion. I was a national champion as a 12-year-old. I was around sports, like my brothers. I had a 6-year older brother, 9-year older brother. And it was like, it's weird because I'm 45 now. So to look back, it's so crazy to me because I went down the path of I got a psych degree, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people in school when I was growing up went business and they were doing all these other things that were the ways that you knew could lead to a really good financial potential future, what stock or whatever. But because of my history, like the age of 12 to 14, things really changed for me and for a lot of different reasons. But I went down a deep rabbit hole of the mind and perception and people and how they change, how they perceive you and look at you. Because I went from being 5'8" and a half, 160 pounds to my sophomore year. I remember after a 2-a-day of football, I remember I sweat like crazy, but I, for some reason, wanted to check my weight because I knew I was bigger than I had been in the past. There's a story there, but I checked my weight afterwards and I weighed like 252 pounds after my workout. And I was like, that was crazy to me. Right. So long story short, what I had OCD when I was growing up, obsessive compulsive disorder, and it came out a lot more because I had a sexual experience that happened, went on for a couple of years, but it was at that prime time. And during that same time, like I said, smoked weed for the first time, drank alcohol, got really drunk for the first time. So I was going through this phase of like, deep emotional and mental change, right?
Yeah.
Hit puberty as well. Like there was a lot of things that went on. So I've spent the rest of my life breaking down that mental side. And I always find it interesting that people, I think, take for granted, like they just go through the motions every day. Whereas when you take time to go inside and actually learn about yourself, to study yourself, you can realize how powerful you truly are. And it's really decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis that empower us or do the opposite of that. And so I'm a very big proponent of the mind and the power that it has. And that's where the discipline that comes in to show up, to do the work. Just like you guys got to show up every day to not take that drink, to not go use that drug again, because it's still going to be there. It's always going to be there. And like I said, addiction runs in my family. And I've always wondered, because like you always wonder, and you're in fear that a family member could go back down that path. You know what I mean? Because I know how I am, where sometimes when life's going really good, that might trigger something to make you go do something that you wouldn't think that though, right? It's normally when things are really bad that might, but sometimes when things are really going your way, there's something that happens. You're like, oh, I'm good. I might be able to go, take that drink or go one time, or maybe if I do it a couple times, I'll be all right. But that is proven time and time again, through addiction, that it's bad. It ends up bad no matter what, you know what I mean? And so I think that when we take the time to know that about ourselves and study ourselves, it empowers us, I guess. Like I'm just a big component of being aware. And then also, like we've talked about, for me, it's always difficult because I'm always like, how do I get more people to try this stuff? But it's their fear factor. Because I've heard many people say, oh, I'm out of shape. Oh, I don't want to get beat up. Oh, I don't want to, oh, I don't have time. But I think that, like you said, exercise was one of the most important things that we can do as people on a day-to-day basis. And I think that it also is therapy. It can be therapy. It can help you feel better. And it helps you build confidence. And those are the things that help us stay on the right path as well, in my opinion. So I've always, most people don't know that I spend so much time on the mindset of things, but it's just so important to, I think, continued success.
It is. And I think that's why, you and I have talked a lot about, and Tommy as well, and Scott, we would love at some point to have maybe like a MMA recovery program.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Where we bring people in early recovery, whether they have a background or not, like for all skill levels. Like we talked about the camaraderie, which is a huge part of like 12-step meetings, AA, Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, all these different kind of groups that are they call them like mutual help or, mutual support groups. Having something centered around mixed martial arts, I think would be super powerful, especially for the younger people. That's one thing a lot of young people struggle with, these mutual support groups, is you go and you've got the old timer, the dude that's 65 years old, that's been sober 30 years, drinking his cup of coffee, telling you about life and the principles, and go make the coffee. And people, you're like 20 years old and you're like, bro, like 2 weeks ago I was ripping and running in the streets, selling dope, hanging out with chicks, like all bad stuff, but stuff that like excites that internal, like, guttural, instinctual stuff in us that makes us human, right? Like the desire part of us, which is so important, but it's important that you channel it properly. And I think MMA for young people, men and women, can be super powerful in giving them something that still has that deep humanistic desire to do something, that excitement, but it's positive, you know what I mean? And it doesn't get you in trouble. Like you can come in here and get your anger out. You can come in here and push yourself a little bit and get that excitement, that fight or flight, but you don't risk going to prison over it or dying. You know what I mean?
I think that's spot on. And that's where I think it makes it different is, I always tell people, when you punch something, punch a pillow at home, really punch it on your bed, and see how you actually feel a little bit better.
Make sure the wall's not behind it though.
Yeah,
like
you
put
want
it
to be
down
on
on
the
your
bed.
mattress.
Punch the wall.
Yes. No, don't do that.
You can do that too. You
break
might
your
have
hand.
to work on your
The drywall missiles need to take a break,
fixing it. But I 100% agree that it's very powerful. And it releases tension and stress, and you feel good from it, and you're learning some real life skills that can help you. Hopefully you never have to use them. But they're there if you need them. but the release of tension, and that's, to me, there was some, I can't remember if it was an article I read or a therapy type psychology book back in the day, where they talked about sometimes when they would do counseling sessions, instead of sitting and just talking, they would get up and walk like around a track.
It does something.
It changes the environment, and then the body is active, and your receptors change, and your ability to progress and heal or recover actually comes out more. Does that make sense?
Right.
There's another book called Spark that talks about these different people who, whether they're anxious, depressed, whatever, they did a study where they found that when kids would come and work out, they would make them come work out for like 45 minutes before school. When they did their most difficult, whatever subject was their worst subject, when they did it immediately after training, they would do way better.
I've seen something about that too.
Yeah. And like, it's super, I think that's the benefit. And I think for like a group of people training together for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, you get all that tension out, and then to sit around and then open up and talk about recovery or the things that you want to talk about, like a lot comes out, and people you feel good about it. And I think it would aid into the healing process and the recovery process, because that's the same thing that's happening. Like I said, I've had many of conversations with groups of people after jiu-jitsu rolls. We do open rolls for an hour, and everyone wants to go grab coffee and just talk for another hour. And they're just talking about life. But everyone feels like, man, this is awesome. We should do this every time because it feels so good. You know what I mean? And you're still that adrenaline, you're still high on the dopamine, whatever, because that lasts for a good 3 to 4 hours at least, they say afterwards.
It takes me 3 to 4 hours to catch my breath, but when we talk too.
No, but it's real stuff. And I think that's the vision at some point, is for us to have like a group of people that would come in and do the mixed martial arts stuff. And then afterwards you hang out for 30, 40 minutes, whatever it is, and could have some food available, drinks, whatever, man. And non-alcoholic, obviously.
Obviously, sure.
You know,
caffeine, coffee.
And, you know, just talk about life, you know,
100%.
like, and that's the thing, is it doesn't have to be specifically drugs and alcohol. Like everybody's in recovery from something, you know, especially in our modern world. In the palm of your hand, you've got gambling, pornography, whatever you want, you know, and it's really hard for a lot of people to self-regulate that stuff. And that's where you get kind of that dopamine sickness, if you would, where it's like, hey, you get addicted to scrolling, or you make a post, check how many likes it has, or did I, you know, do people like this or not? Like, am I cool? Am I not? You know, in my case, I'm not very cool. So, you know, whatever, it's fun.
I think it's super powerful, man. And I think it's real. And I think it would be awesome to do, because I can't tell you, just by talking about it right now, like there's been so many. That's what they say about jiu-jitsu, the camaraderie, right? And they say the same thing about wrestling, but wrestling is very physical, and it's mostly high schoolers and grade schoolers. Grown men aren't wrestling when they're older just to wrestle very often, because it's physical, it's hard. And if you didn't do it in the past, you're not as, jiu-jitsu has a softer entry. You could not be as in good a shape. You can kind of take your time, and you don't have to go as hard.
It's lower impact.
You have to slam each other on the ground.
You're not slamming. But wrestling, that's the case.
You're going.
The MMA stuff, hitting the heavy bag, you can hit the heavy bag while I'm doing mitts with somebody. Like it's almost like you can get the most out of it and not be in jeopardy of, you know what I mean, ego or anything. And then you're done. And you just connect with people because you're high on life and you're talking about whatever. Like, we've had all kinds of conversations after we're done with training. And
and I mean, how many guys have you heard say jiu-jitsu saved my life?
A lot. And that's why I say jiu-jitsu is for everybody as well, because it's the camaraderie. And how many in society today, and I'm not saying that it's all horrible and all bad, but just people are looking for outlets, man. People are looking to connect. People want to connect to other people. And when you're pushing and pulling on somebody else, no matter what, they're getting tired, you're getting tired, after 45 minutes to an hour, that there's a real camaraderie. It's a brotherhood, a fraternity, whatever you want to call it, because we also just went through some hard stuff. So if we work out hard for an hour together, we have a bond that's real, just like the vets. And that's what they're missing when they come back, and they don't have that bond with their brother. They don't miss the military. They miss the fact that they're taking responsibility to look out for their battle buddy, to hold other people accountable, and for themselves to show up. You know what I mean?
they love being a part of the mission, doing something for their country. And that's, we talked to Jared, and we're going to introduce you to Jared at some point, but you and I talked about this yesterday, like the mission's not over. Now the mission is be the best father you can be the best husband, the best wife, the best community member, the best employee, whatever that looks like, be the best at it, because your country still needs you.
100%.
And that's true for people that, are service members and people that have never served too,
Absolutely.
And I think that's the cool thing about MMA too, is in this world we have today, there's not many hard things left to do, right? Like we could all order DoorDash right now, and we could pull up a movie and watch it all day, and we could do our homework through Chat GPT if we had homework, right? I know we don't, but I'm just using it as an example. And easy peasy, right? But there's still people that yearn to do something difficult. It's part of who you are. And it's
I think
very
everyone
important.
does. They just don't acknowledge or accept that that's a reality. Because I think that as human beings, for however long they say, millions of years, we were hunter-gatherers. We walked, we moved, we hunted our food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's still in us.
It is.
And I think that because things are easier at times, that creates problems.
It does.
You know what I mean? And that's why I always come back to do hard, and you'll see on the back end of that how it adds a lot of value to your life, no matter who you are.
And the world still needs people that are willing to do hard stuff.
Exactly.
So much. Like we talk all the time, all of us, about how important it is to be excellent at everything you do, at least strive for excellence. Again, same conversation we just had, but it goes back to being the best father, mother, employee, employer, citizen, all those things. Like, think about our world. If everybody thought about how their actions impacted those who live in close proximity, whether it's your family, whether it's just your neighbor, whether it's the guy that lives down the road, whether it's you're a trash man and it's the people's trash you pick up, like that all matters so much. And I think we've gotten so divorced from that. Partly because we live in such an individualistic society. Like, it's all about me, and everything caters to me. We stop realizing that there's people outside of that sphere other than the people that we want something from. Like, we're interdependent beings. We're created to be in community with one another. Like I just said, and I say it 100,000 times, the opposite of addiction is human connection. The opposite of everything negative, I feel like, is positive, healthy human connection. And we've just gotten so far away from that. And so this, again, I know we're beating this to death. That's also a pun because we're talking about MMA. It's good. Yeah, we're going to ground and pound this thing to death. It's just doing something hard and showing you that you can, and getting involved with a group of people, again, that are all trying to go in the same direction as you. We're all doing something together that is tough and that we're going to have to push through. And just when you get in there, like that guy yesterday, I came in, I never knew him. Dude, he and I, like, when he's doing something with you, I'm like, you got it, bro. Come on. 30 seconds. And when I'm in, he's like, come on, dude. And he and I are sparring, and you're like, 30 seconds. I'm like, let's go. We touch gloves, and we're just whooping on each other.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I love to do that because you didn't know him, he didn't know you, but you guys entrusted me that I knew that you guys would take care of each other.
Right.
And that's a cool thing too, because and Adam is a good dude, and he's been with me for a long time. It's funny because he's been with me for, I don't know, 8 to 10 years, and he randomly called me out of the blue and had graduated from college. It was like, hey, found your number. Will you teach me how to wrestle? So like, it's like the total opposite. I'd never had anything like it happen. I'm like, how'd you get my number? Like, where did you find me? Right. But I put my number out on Facebook and Instagram. So it was just really cool because he's come so far in that positive direction. And he keeps coming back, and I love it. And that's, I think, a testament to the power in this that I try to tell everybody. And obviously, if you're, way older, 70 years old, and you've never worked out, it's probably not something you're going to jump to or be really excited about doing. But anybody else, and I'm being serious about it, you can adjust how hard it is, right? My job is to try and take you to that dark place or close to it, and then pull you back. Take you to it and then pull you back. And in that process, we learn about ourselves. We learn a lot about ourselves. And it, to me, is always interesting because everyone says the same thing, that it correlates to life. I can't tell you how it does exactly. It's always different for every individual, but whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, recovery, like whatever you are, a little kid, like I've seen kids that change. You can see their confidence change because they start throwing. I've seen women who are totally not into that at all, and it would never be their thing, change and become more confident human beings, and they release the tension. And the cool thing about it all is that the more you do it, the less likely you are to start a fight with somebody or to even want to engage.
Because you feel confident.
You feel confident and you're like, I don't need to prove anything to anybody. You know what I mean? It's funny because most, I'm not going to say all, but most people that fight professionally, they're not interested in fighting people on the streets because they do so much training that they don't want to. But I just think that it's a super powerful way that you can add to it. You don't have to go all in and just do that. Lift your weights, do this training occasionally, go for a long run, do this training occasionally, because it's just a really powerful tool, I think, to help the mind, body, spirit. I always, for the longest time, I felt weird saying that, but it's just true and real. And I don't know how to explain in really good terms why it is, but it just is.
Well, and we talk a lot about that mind, body, spirit. A lot of people say you're missing one. I'm like, what's that? And they're like, well, you're missing emotional. And then they say, well, you're missing social. Look, those two take care of themselves if the other three are healthy. That's what I always tell people. Your mind, body, spirit are good. Your emotions, which are a result of those things, are going to be all right. And so is your social. So you got to take care of that first, right? And this is something too, I know we talked about for people that are in recovery or active addiction getting into this, but man, this is for those people watching too, that are the mom, the wife, the husband, the kid of somebody that has an addiction. Like, I know it's such a powerless feeling to have your loved one. I was just talking to a mom this morning. I ran into her downtown at a meeting I was having, and you know, her daughter's sober now, but gosh, she talked about just the powerlessness and the sickness of having a daughter that she at night didn't know if she was alive. Like, there's weeks she wouldn't talk to her. She didn't know where she was, who she was with, if she was alive, if she was in jail, if she was safe, if she was sober or not. Likely not. But this is a way for you to feel like you're getting your power back, because again, you start building yourself up in one spot. Like, you see it's easier across the board to build yourself up, and it starts to kind of like, you know, rising tide lifts all boats, you know, like it will help you. So again, this isn't just for people that have drug addiction or anything like that. I can't
imagine, like, I think about your parents, you know, when you were going through stuff, thinking about this young woman's mother, like the stress and the anxiousness that they hold.
Right.
That affects them in their lives. You know, they're still having to get up and go to work or run a business or do whatever, take care of your other siblings, whatever it may be. It's real. You know what I'm saying? And it really affects them. You know, I've seen it within my own family, how it affects parents, you know what I mean? Affected parents. And that's real stuff. You know what I mean? And, again, and I'm an advocate for this stuff because I do it, right? And I know the power because I experience it all the time, and I've always and I've done it for 40 years, you know what I'm saying? So I know that it's real. And to me, the interesting thing about this stuff that's really stuck with me over the years is you don't really get tired of it once you do it. Like, you don't get to the point where like, you might say, oh, I don't feel like doing it today. And you might take a day off, but you'll still want to do something else, or you'll want to go lift if you're not going to hit the bag today, or if you're not going to do mitt work. It becomes a part of who you are. You know what I mean?
Gets in your blood.
You just don't get tired of it. Like, I can think of a few friends that I have, and I tell them, because I say, you know, we're the weird ones because they train more than me at times now. And I don't really get why, but we're the chasers of the dopamine. Like, they love to work out, and it's a part of their day every day in some way, shape, or form, because it's really powerful stuff.
It's a positive way to do it.
It's a positive way to do it. That's the other thing, is that it's one of the only things they said in that book, Spark, that if they could prescribe, what was it, in a pill form, the number one prescribed drug would be 30 minutes of exercise a day.
It'll change your life.
Exactly.
Change your life.
And to me, that was a testament to like, hey man, if they're saying this, it's got to be real, because they've done the studies and they've seen the brain.
Right. And it's free.
And it's free.
No, the training that might not be free, but I'm saying, like, you can go run.
Yeah.
You talking about the other day, like, you know, there's a guy telling me he's not going to work out for a while. I said, dude, do 100 bodyweight squats, do 100 push-ups, do sit-ups, you know, whatever you can do, march in place,
Start somewhere.
Start somewhere, go for a jog, you know. Like,
and it's okay wherever you start, because you'll get better the more you do it. And to me, like, obviously, I'm like, man, I feel like I should have a 6-pack abs and be diesel for as much as I train, but it's really not how you look. It's how it makes you feel. that
Right.
that is the beauty of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I don't think I know it saves lives. And like I've said to you, I had a heart attack over a year ago,
Yeah.
and I had a major back injury shortly thereafter.
Mhm.
I really feel like the fact that I had trained so much throughout my life helped me through that process, and I didn't
I
have a
believe
lot
it.
of damage, and I think
Yeah.
that it will continue to serve me for the rest of my life.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
What about you, Tommy?
I've been thinking ever since you were talking about if you're a family member of somebody, you know, you've got your husband, wife, child, whoever that's struggling with addiction, primarily because that's what we deal with most of the time. But I was thinking back, remember years ago when I drew that like wheel on that whiteboard at Fort Wayne Recovery, and you have these different areas of your life, and one of the areas is like physical activity, taking care of your body. And if that's an area that you've neglected for a long period of time, especially if you're super stressed out and anxious and worried about something like that, like you're like my mom, for example, worrying about me, and your mom and dad worrying about you. If that's something that you introduce into your life, that it literally does help balance that wheel back out. You know, I mean, that's
100%.
what I've been thinking about ever since you brought that up. And that goes for every one of those areas. If you're neglecting, you know, your emotional health or your social life or, you know, any of those areas, like I guess it's not hard to explain, but I made this wheel on the wall. And so you have these 5 different areas of your life, and, you know, you put X amount of time and energy into this area, X amount of time and energy into this area and this area, but you're neglecting these other 2. If you try to make that draw a circle on a scale from 1 to 10, and it doesn't make a wheel, because you've got these 3 areas that you're putting, you know, 8 out of 10, you know, that's how we marked it. So the other 2 are 1, 2. It's not a wheel.
Not going to roll very well.
It's not going to roll. So you
Yeah,
got to take a little bit away from those other areas
Oh, okay.
and focus them on the other 2. So that's what I was thinking of. If physical activity is something that you've really neglected for a long time, and, you know, you're having anxiety, depression, whatever it is, adding that to your life. And it's not like you have to dive headfirst into it and go, you know, 100% right away. But I mean, it's been super beneficial for both of us. I know it's been really beneficial for you. So
yeah, absolutely.
Take a walk, you know what I mean? Start somewhere.
Anything.
Recovery is all about balance, you know, like, and this is just one thing you can throw in there to balance out the rest of your life. It doesn't have to be the focal point, and that's not even what we're advocating for, you know?
Yeah.
But it will amplify the other part. Like, there's synergy, right? Like, when you have the mental side, the physical side, and the spiritual side all working well, they feed off each other.
Well, absolutely.
You know, and it's so important. And that's what recovery is all about, is balancing those things, being a well-rounded individual. Because when we're out there using, what are we doing? We're putting everything into feeling better, everything into getting high, everything into avoiding our problems. And then what happens is everybody has to carry those burdens, and they're heavy burdens for other people to carry. You know,
I think, and you've pointed that out before with addiction, and I think in some kind of way we're all addicts, right? Like we
are.
Like we all have things that we're addicted to, whatever it may be. But I think that there's something really special about, like, in that addiction, like whatever originally took you to that, like you said, the first time you smoked weed, something clicked, was like, well, this is special, or, you know what I mean? And some people don't have that as much, but yet they can still find it if you keep the body. Addictive drugs are addictive drugs, no matter what, you know what I mean? But that there's something inside of all of us that when you exercise, and I hate to keep coming back to it, it helps you feel. It feeds that a little bit to where you maybe you don't have to go back to that thing. And I think that's the back end of this, what I'm saying. Somebody that goes and runs 25 miles, they're still chasing that thing. They're just doing it in a positive way.
Right.
And that's the power to me. And that's what exercise in any way, shape, or form, what it does for you. And that's why I'm such a huge advocate for it. Because it helps, like, again, replace that. Because you can't just stop it. You got to replace it with something. And why not replace it with something that's positive, that is proven to be positive and can improve your life? And that's really what I'm all about. That's it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
So
All right. Well, that's going to do it for episode 29. Anton, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me,
appreciate you
guys.
being here.
Yeah.
Love it.
We'll probably see you this weekend.
That'd be awesome.
Yep.
Can't wait.
All right. Thank you guys for watching.